Let us continue with the discussion, friends. One of the most important elements of a research thesis is the incorporation within the thesis of a theoretical foundation. You can employ the theoretical foundation with the help of certain theories that we find it in literary works, in literary criticism and critical theory, very pertinently. One of the unfortunate problems with terms such as theoretical framework, theoretical perspective, and a sort of paradigm is that they used differently by different supervisors. So to resolve this problem, we can do one thing to build up a theoretical foundation. What we have to do, we have to have a working definition of the theoretical framework that you are going to use. Secondly, you can use that term consistently in your dissertation. And the third term, paradigm, is normally used to refer to a broad view which informs an approach to research. What is your approach to research? Now, if you see the term theoretical perspective that we are talking about, it is very much essential for continuing the research. Because this theoretical framework give an idea to the reader that the student or the researcher who was making certain assumptions about the nature of data which had been collected and the process of analysis that he followed in pursuing to the conclusion, he needs to make it very clear to the readers, to the examiner prominently, about the theoretical framework on which the whole discussion argument that you are pursuing in literature, in your research work, can get certain confirm understanding and identity at the end in the conclusion. Because it is generally, you can say, important that assumptions, which assumption you made, those assumptions should make clear in the whole dissertation. Because what you assume at first, you are making it clear by the end of it. A simple example, I may give it to you. In our school days, when we were solving our mathematics problems in algebra, when we were solving our mathematics, at that time in mathematics in algebra, usually we used to have, if you don't know value of certain number, we used to follow it with x. You assume that it is x. Suppose x, you assume it. And when you reach to the conclusion, you find the exact value of that x which you have assumed. That means you make it, your assumption very confirm and clear. In the same fashion, when you write a dissertation, what you assume at the beginning of your dissertation should reach to a proper conclusion at the end of it. The end of that particular your dissertation should follow the complete methods to clarify, to make all the arguments with the logical interconnections with each other to reach to a particular conclusion. Now, usually, there are three concepts which are very close to the ideas of paradigm. Because if you see, paradigm is a word normally used to refer broad worldview which informs the approach of a research. So there are three concepts which are related to this particular paradigm. But they are used in rather different ways. The three concepts which we use in paradigms of two, ontology and epistemology, these are the two words. Ontology and epistemology are both important terms in philosophy. And these two terms, they are used by students to varying degrees with discussing the theoretical issues in their dissertation. Various theoretical issues you want to discuss, you discuss theoretical dissertation by using the term ontology and epistemology. The term ontology may be used to refer to the fundamental nature of the world. Please understand what is ontology. Ontology is referred to the basic or primary or to the fundamental nature of world and what it means to exist in that world. What is the meaning of the existence? Why you exist in this world? Why these things exist in the world? All those things are discussed in ontology. And on the basis of ontology, it is possible to find out the entities which researchers seek to measure, which researcher want to reach, which researcher want to find out. For example, one may perceive the world as being made up of various entities which exist in this world. Various entities exist in the world, right from human to minute microbes, viruses nowadays. All the entities exist in this world independently, beyond our human thoughts. And alternatively, one might consider that the world is being basically a function of human thought. That is his assumption. Now, if you see the ontological issues, the ontological issues in the theories are important. But you are concerned with the ontological issues with the epistemological basis of research. These three things are related with each other. You cannot separate it. Now, ontology is the fundamental nature of world and what it means to exist in that world. One can think about the human existence and some things are beyond human thoughts, and somebody should think that everything is within the purview of human thoughts. The existence of everything is known to human being. That is another perception. This is an ontological observation, ontological understanding of certain things. Now, epistemology, in philosophical terms, if you carefully understand it, is the study of the grounds on which we claim to know something about the world. There are certain grounds which makes you to feel that yes, I know this. This ground which makes you to understand that what exactly you are going to do, what exactly you are going to achieve, and what things you know, everything you know, the claim you are making. Because in your dissertation, you are making certain claims. You are claiming of certain things that I know this, or I think this. The term epistemology may be used in dissertation for this understanding. The truth which is claimed in the thesis are based somehow upon the broad tenets of natural sciences, and the assumption at that time is that I know everything that is existed. That is called as positive epistemology. And epistemological assumptions, for example, the proposal and testing of hypothesis. We'll talk about testing of hypothesis or developing a theory immediately. The proposal and testing of hypothesis involving the collection of your empirical data, and that will give you satisfactory result for generating new knowledge. This is you usually follow in, or which you do, is to be considered as epistemology. And finally, the term methodology. It may be used in a number of different ways also. Because when you try to continue with your research, you need to follow certain methods. Once again, going back to your school algebra, and when you are solving certain mathematical calculation in your algebra, you need to have steps, methods to follow. And your teacher of mathematics used to give marks as per your steps, step 1, step 2, step 3. And if you miss certain step, he will not give marks for that step. That means there is a particular method to follow. There is particular understanding. These three things in every research is most important. Ontological understanding means you need to understand that there is fundamental nature and everything that exists in this world is having its own meaning. That is called as an ontology. Epistemology is the study of the ground on which we claim that we know something about this world. We know something about this particular topic. When you are pursuing your dissertation, when you are finalizing your topic of dissertation, at that time you cannot say that I don't know anything about this. The teacher gave me and I have tried. No, not at all. That's why in my previous lectures I have said to you very categorically that you need to understand what exactly you are going to do, why you are doing this, why this kind of research you are pursuing. And that's why we have also talked about the review of literature. You have to read the things very minutely, and after reading the things very minutely, you have to formulate your understanding of that particular thing. And that's why ontology is important and ontological perception is important. The reason is that you cannot say that there is the thing which you researched is the only thing available or is the only thing present. No. As I said you earlier also, the word research itself explains you so many things. So you cannot say that when I'm talking about research, I'm finding something new. No, there is something already existed in this world. And when the things are already existed in this world. You are simply trying to find out, and you also know that the thing is existed and has got its meaning. You are trying to find out, and you are knowing this, but with certain methodologies, something you assume about that particular thing, you are trying to find it out. That is called as research. You are finding it out. You know that these things are available, these things are there. Now, for example, if you take literary any genre of literature, if you are taking drama, characters are there, relationships are there, relationship between the two characters are there, relationship between man and woman is there, relationship between different characters are there. You cannot say that there is no relationship. Every literature, every story carries a sort of literature. Every story needs a sort of conflict in it. The conflict between good and bad, the conflict between right and wrong, the conflict between two rights, which is proper. There's always conflict in the story, and if you are saying there is no conflict in the story is not going to get complete in literature. The thing is existed already. What are you doing now in research? You know this also, that there is a conflict. Now what you are finding out, you are finding out this sort of relationship, how this conflict grow the whole understanding of that text. And for that you require certain methods. So methodology is also important in following the complete research, and that's what our title of the paper itself suggests, that we need to understand the methodology. Please understand, my friends, that theoretical dimensions need to be included in your research, without which your research is not going to get complete. Theoretical dimensions in your research. Make sure that you know, or you are clear about the reasons for selecting that dimension in your research. You can, that's why I said you cannot claim, or you cannot say that, okay, I did all those things because my teacher said, my supervisor said. No. Even you have to convince your supervisor why you want to take this particular topic. What is the reason behind taking this particular topic? It is not simply because somebody said, somebody discussed about certain things, and that things makes you to point it out that yes, this is how you are going to deal with. No. You need to have a clear-cut understanding why you are trying to find out that particular dimension, why you are trying to find out this particular reason, this particular thing. And that's why these three things, ontological, epistemology, and methodology, these three things are very much important in all sorts of theses and dissertations. Whether it is dissertation for post-graduation, whether it is doctoral dissertation, wherever you are, whatever you are, you need to understand why you are raising, what are the reasons for selecting that dimension, what are the reasons you are selecting that particular topic. Now, I hope that you got what exactly ontology, what exactly epistemology, what exactly methodology means. Now, when you are developing when you're trying to discuss, when you're trying to move with certain arguments, you have to identify the research design. Remember one thing, these things, it makes you somehow, sir, it is so difficult that we are not able to understand what you are telling, or how it is possible for us to do the research in this fashion or in this way. You may have these doubts in your mind. You may have these questions in your mind. But this is actually a practical work, my friend, and this practical work will always makes you to get the things comfortably. But what happens, we sometimes we feel that it is very much difficult for us to understand. And that's why we think that the research is a difficult task to follow. Now, broadly speaking, you need to have a design, research design. And please understand this research design and these things are comfortably, this can be done comfortably when you discuss with your research supervisor about all those things. But you should understand what you are doing in your research. That's why this is the whole activity we are following right now. And the research design is fundamentally concerned. What sort of design you are following is fundamentally testing and hypothesis. Now you may have a question, sir, what is mean by hypothesis? And how to test this hypothesis? Hypothesis is nothing but what you assume. What is your aim? How you are going to find it out? What is your understanding? What is your topic? The title which you have given is the thing you assume, that is your hypothesis. You think that this is how it happens, and this has to be tested. And this has to be tested with the concerned theories that you are going to apply to it. As I said to you at the beginning of the research methodology, that if you want to prove something white, you need to have black background. Then and then it is possible for you to prove that the thing that you are talking about is white. What you are telling is white. That means you assume, you considered, your hypothesis is that this is the thing available there. Now you have to justify it, whether it is right or wrong. And the whole process of proving whether it is right or wrong is called as testing of an hypothesis. Now, this approach you adopt in research design, it is also important that it is related to your aims and objectives that you have defined for your research work. If you know the aims and objectives of your research, as I said you in the early and in the beginning of my lecture, that you need to understand the whole, you should have aims and objectives in your dissertation, that what is your aim to do that. What hypothesis you built up, all the hypothesis is built up with the help of these aims and objectives. These aims and objectives help you to build the whole understanding, and a hypothesis, by way, is not always easy to express, because you have to write it down at the beginning of your dissertation. Somehow, if you allow me, I'll tell that this is the title of your dissertation in one way. What you are going to write down, what you are going to prove it is a title of your dissertation. And this is clearly a testable. And secondly, it is clear as to the nature of data which would be needed in order to support it or to refute it. For example, take any title of dissertations. As I said, villains in Shakespearean plays, a critical view. Now this is your title of the thesis. Now critical view, in which critical perceptions you are looking to those villains, whether you are looking it through social perception, whether you are looking it through political, whether you are looking it through cultural, whether you are looking it through historical, which perception you are following. What is your critical view? For that, you need to have a theoretical background to discuss about. That means you have to testify it, you have to test it, whether what you are saying is right or wrong. And for testing all those things, the whole process is you are following in the way of the research dissertation you are presenting. And this generally, my friends, there is no universal rule that this should follow this way only. No. If there is universal rule, then it will be difficult for us to understand or to see that all the dissertations looks like same. So there is no universal rule for testing it. It varies from the data you collect. And that's why testing of hypothesis tend to operate using the positivistic epistemology that I said to you. The positivistic epistemology is that the truth you claims in the thesis are based upon certain broad tenets of nature or natural sciences. What you're talking is already there. You're trying to test it whether that is right or wrong. Is it not that when you cook something in your kitchen, you test it first before serving to others? Why? You daily prepare the same thing, but why you test? Don't you have your confidence that what I did is quite right? But you test always before serving it. This is the same kind of thing you are doing in research, that you know that thing is existed there. You are trying to test it whether it is right or wrong before presenting it to someone else. And you are following a particular method, and that method is being examined by the examiner. Don't think that the examiner is interested in examining what you are talking is right or wrong. No, the examiner is interested in understanding that what you claim, will you able to prove it, that particular claim? Will you able to point it out that what you are saying is right? Are you able to get the things in a very proper way? So, testing of hypothesis is always carrying a sense of probability. And this sense of probability need to be expressed very carefully when you are writing a dissertation. And that's why what you are saying at the beginning of your dissertation is not the confirmed statement, it is the probable statement. You're talking about probability. Probable these are things. That's why we are trying to get the information given by rest of the noted critiques, and trying to put it with what we want to say and try to test it with their sayings, that yes, what they are saying, I'm reaching there or not. And for that, all the testing of the hypothesis requires a theory that is grounded in the dissertation. On the basis of this theory, you can able to discuss the themes very comfortably. Now, throughout the thesis, my friends, it is important to exercise care in making statements which suggest an absolute or universal validity. That's why I said, when you are making a statements, when you are writing statements in your dissertation, those statements should not claim the validity, because you are, what I said, your language should be of probability, because you have not reached to any particular conclusion. In conclusion, you are making your statement that yes, what I said is right. Now why? Because I said all those things to prove it in the last 90 pages or last 200 pages. I said all those things there. I explained all those things there. And that's why when you write in your dissertation, when you write in your thesis, you need to understand that you are not making a statements. You should be very much careful in making statements which reaches to an absolute validity. Because if you are reaching to an absolute validity, when you're trying to make a statements which are reaching to validity, you are losing the testing process of your hypothesis. Because your hypothesis, you are testing your hypothesis. The questions which you have in your mind regarding to that particular text which you want to research. I'm again insisting, research. You're trying to find it out in that research, that particular thing. You're trying to get answers of that particular thing. For that, you run a complete process with your ontological, epistemological, and methodological process. With a background of theory, you are proving that particular thing. And that's why, my friends, for example, in the introduction to the thesis, the student may rather incautiously write that the subject for this dissertation has been chosen because there have been no other studies on this topic. These types of statement you are making, showing that you know the things, that there is no other work done. You don't know. Most subject will probably have been studied previously in one form or another. So when you are claiming this in your dissertation, you are simply making a sweeping statements, sweeping claims about your knowledge. And that's why you have to mention that instead of that statement, what you have to write down, there have been few other studies on this particular facet of the subject. Or you can say, although there have been number of studies on this topic, the particular sample or particular context of the study gives a distinctive written in a distinctive, with a distinctive characteristic. You have to mention it in this way. That is how your dissertation is going to be a proper dissertation. And another common error that most of the students used to have in your uh, writing of dissertation is discussing methodology. Because methodology is a very difficult area to write down. It is easy for you to understand. It is easy for you to point out about or use of methodology in your complete dissertation, but the methodology is not visible directly, because this methodology used to give you some sort of, you can say, with the help of certain approaches, you are developing a methodology to reach to a particular conclusion. Methodology cannot be stated in the word, but you are following certain method: analytical method, interpretative method, comparative method. You are following certain methods, and this methodology aims to study and try to prove the research design that you have chosen for that content. And that's why methodology is not coming clearly in the form of statements in your dissertation. Now, it is important, as I said to you, that you should not make a sweeping statements, because academic writing doesn't provide any chance to make a sweeping statements any sort of without any sort of justification. You need to have a sort of justification. Then and then it is possible for you to reach to one particular conclusion. But before reaching to the conclusion, if you are making a sweeping statements, then you are not making this dissertation, or you are not writing, or you are not properly conducting the research. But when you are trying to test your hypothesis, when you are trying to prove your hypothesis, that what you thought, what you discuss, what you are saying is right, when you are trying to test your hypothesis, my friends, you need to have alternative viewpoints to be presented in your discussion. Because what happens most of the time, my friends, at the initial level, our students used to follow a typical kind of line of discussion, and they used to follow that one particular line. But there are various viewpoints also there, and we need to understand those viewpoints in our understanding of the topic. And that's why we need to use alternative viewpoints in our dissertation. And from where you will get these alternative viewpoints, as I said to you earlier also, that your alternative viewpoints you can able to collect it from the secondary sources, from the articles, from the journals, from the various pages available on internet. Alternative viewpoints on that particular topic, you have to collect it and you have to bring it, and this will give you a fresh perspective on your result. If you are trying to sort your arguments on the basis of your own method, single one method, then this would prove that you are illogical. Because to prove certain things, you need supportive arguments, and supportive arguments are always one of the most important, essential part of any dissertation. Again, I'll make it one thing very much clear to you, my friends. Dissertation doesn't mean rewriting of any story that as usually we used to do in our examinations. Any question you ask in examination, the student will write the story of that particular novel or that particular drama. You ask any particular, if you see any particular question on a particular drama, you simply start writing a very common sentence. Usually we used to find out Shakespeare was the great dramatist. He wrote this much plays. Now this is not expected in your answer. This is not expected in your research. This is what is already there. What is asked, what you want to say, because your argument is most important, not the narration. You are not, once again, why should I read your story if I read original Shakespeare story? But if I'm putting an argument to it, this coherent argument needs to be developed. And a dissertation or thesis should gradually develop a coherent argument, which is very much important for the readers to understand the development of your thesis, the growth of your thesis. Because your arguments can make the reader to stay with you. If you're not making any argument there, why should I waste my time in reading your words? There should be argument, and that argument need to be part of your thesis, which can come from their aims. What is your aim in doing that? The basic, again I am saying, it is a very basic thing in dissertation, that your aims and objectives should be very much clear. Because if you develop an argument, this argument will lead logically to set a theoretical assumptions, and those theoretical assumptions are reflected in your dissertation, which will make you to claim that you have added something new into the field of knowledge. Why you are talking about all those things? What new you are doing? Because you are searching, you are finding out, you are getting the exact conclusion, the question that is always haunting you. You're trying to reach to a conclusion, getting answer of that particular question with the particular methodology by building up an argument that this is how I'm talking about, this is how others have talked about, this is how my understanding is, this is how others have claimed. Now with their claim and with my understanding, I can able to say that what I'm saying is in this way is right. Have you read um, any criminal story? How the detective used to, if you read Sherlock Holmes, how Sherlock Holmes used to connect all the dots very properly so that he can able to make the picture very clear. Connecting the dots means you are making an arguments, and all these arguments which you make the argument, which you develop an argument, which you make it in your dissertation. This argument means your hypothesis. You have claimed one hypothesis. You have assumed certain thing, and for assuming that particular thing, the thing which you assumed, you are with your arguments trying to reach to a logical end of this complete debate that you initiated in your dissertation. So you require to have, with the help of the secondary sources, with the help of the references, you are trying to develop your coherent argument. And my friends, the intellectual content of all the shorter thesis, because you need to understand that there is ample amount of time and ample amount of pages available for the doctoral research or the student of PhD to prove his argument with lots of things. But when a student of postgraduate is trying to give his shorter thesis, his shorter dissertation, you need to understand that the shorter dissertation requires much more focused approach. The PhD student can, to some extent, slowly and systematically construct his arguments because he's specially doing that work for 5 years, for 6 years, he is doing that particular work. You're not doing that work for 5, 6 years. You are doing it for only 1, 2 months. Within that 1, 2 months, you have to be very much focused to reach to that particular end because there is no chance for any repetition. You cannot able to move out of your argument. You have to design your strategies in such a way that you should reach to your argument very quickly. One general strategy, and the general strategy is to try to adopt a succinct writing style. It is a good time, my friends, for you. That during this pandemic, you are not wasting your time in traveling from one place to another, from your house or from your room to the department and from department to your room. You are not wasting your time in traveling, in moving from one place to another. You are at your home. And now it is high time that you should practice of writing. My friends, most of the time you will find out our students are not having a proper practice of writing. We write only on the day of examination in the answer book only directly. So we should have regularly 5 to 10 pages we are writing so that our writing skill needs to be enhanced. It is a sort of developing a perfect, a proper writing style. A shorter thesis need to reduce the amount of discussion of technical and specialist term. Don't enter into varieties of term. Because in doctoral thesis, the student is trying to achieve a number of objectives simultaneously, but we have only one objective because we are not writing a dissertation for doctoral degree. So we should have a smaller objective. We should have a smaller technical term, or we should have a specialist term with a minimum understanding. And we need not to demonstrate our understanding of methodology by giving various examples to it. In order to demonstrate the use of methodology to the examiners, you need to use the terminology and demonstrate the wide range of your understanding through your text, through your sentences, through your writings. And please understand, my friends, that in qualitative research study, the data may not be entirely relevant. You need to be very proper and perfect in finding out that which data is the most proper data for you to capture. What are the secondary sources I need to capture? What are the things I need to capture? For that, again, I am saying, my friend, precise writing is the most difficult thing. You can write down lengthy sentences, but writing simple sentence is difficult. In grammar, writing simple sentence is difficult. Complex sentence is easy to write. A very common misconception amongst most of the students when they enter into the postgraduate courses of our department. When they join MA English, they always used to feel that, okay, I can write simple English. No, simple English is difficult. Because if you want to write down simple English, you need to understand the complex English very well. Then and then it is possible for you to write down simple English. And usually we used to write down complex English. The sentences are complex sentence. I'm not, again, when your language orientation core paper, third paper, language orientation, when you are going to study the grammar and all those different types of sentences, you will understand what is the difference between simple sentence and complex sentence. You cannot write simple. Writing simple is difficult because it needs lots of practice. In Marathi, you call it tapashcharya. Then and then it is possible for you to become simple, easy. Now, when the mango is completely ripe, then it is getting down. When a mango is not ripened, it is up. But when it is ripened, it is getting close to the earth, it is getting down. When you are going to speak simple, when you are full with knowledge, then you are going to get simple. If you are not with more knowledge, you are not going to get simple. You are always being complex, and you are in qualitative research. You need to understand this particular thing, that I am going to write down a dissertation which is precise, and precise writing is difficult thing. And that's why the data which you have may not be comfortable, may not be suitable entirely for your study. You have to choose something and drop most of the things. There may be a duplication of data, repetition of sentences. For a shorter thesis, the researcher may simply collect the less data so that he can able to use it properly into it. When selecting an extract for inclusion in thesis, it is most of the time we feel very much eager that we want to use each and everything that I have collected. We have to be very much cautious about it. Instead of using a complete text use certain quotes of it, quotation of it. And the demand of shorter thesis is that it should be carefully balanced